Good afternoon to the final session of this wonderful conference. My name is Niels Hopper. I'm an academic lawyer from the University of Hanover and one of the baby members of the Ethics and Governance Council. When you see me at a conference, that usually means it's nearly over. I always get the last slot for some reason. The good news is you won't have to listen to me because I don't have to say anything here. We do have 4 speakers. I'm too short at the moment. I've only got 2 out of 4. Did you forget that you were up now? So what we'll do is we'll do what we did in every other session. We'll have the 4 back-to-back. I'm German, so I'll be doing this timekeeping thing that's really annoying for everybody else. And then after that, we have 15 minutes for a good discussion. And because I know a lot of people have to leave very quickly to get their trains and their planes, we'll try to keep on time. So without much further ado, Bartha, you're up.
Thank you, and I'm going to go at the speed of light because it's really in the last 5 slides, and I've put so much paper on everybody's tables that it saves me having to explain a lot of things. So let's just start with P3G and then move on to the Global Alliance and see what kind of new tools, new approaches are being developed in order to handle the move towards the use of big data and the interaction between different biobanks around the world. So the mission of P3G, as you remember, in the 2007-2012 was mainly to create the tools for future interoperability of population biobanks. And in 2012 and onwards, we've slightly refocused, having hopefully achieved that to some extent, both from an EPI and policy point of view, and now we're becoming a policy infrastructure to help all research infrastructures dealing with biomedical or other kinds of research. So we have 560 members and we're covering 40 countries. So at the bottom you see that little strip of icons, the tools we created during our biobank exclusivity stage, and now above you see the IPAQ, and I'll get to that in a minute. So it is a not-for-profit consortium located in Canada serving the international research community. There's different programs in it. Jane will talk to you about LC 2.0. Maelstrom was in P3G. It's now a program in it, and that's the EPI harmonization. Isabelle Fortier, I'm sure you've heard of all her work. So the IPAQ, which you see on your tables, is now our latest release of tools and services, and it began in January of this year. It has different components. The most popular so far is the LC Clauses Generic Agreements Database, where we've distilled from about 300 consents and policies that we have in our archives, clauses and agreements and generic templates for material transfer agreements, et cetera, that you can use, adapt, customize, reject. Our policy interoperability screening, when people are applying for funding, even before they put in their application, they will ask us to help them with how to make sure that even in their application, they can demonstrate that they can work together legally, ethically, and hopefully socially as well. That's not our problem, but we try to prepare the tools for them even at the application stage and certainly in the negotiation contractual stage if it's a European project and so on. And finally, the Data Access Clearinghouse, we did it for ICGC. I forget who mentioned it, the International Cancer Genome Consortium. We now have run 700 applications through this Data Access Compliance Office, and we have it down to 5 days. So we are really getting sort of used to all the different requirements for authentication, checking ethics approval, security plans, and so on. I can't see it. That's a clause on the agreement. The interoperability screening I described very briefly. These are all the different kinds of screening that we can do, as well as checking that your publication policies or IP are not contradictory, that you can actually work together, develop codes of conduct if you need it, data sharing policies, opt-out consents, and the like. Oops, go back one, since I can't, because I'm techie 0. Oh, thanks. Data access compliance offices, actually kind of heavily on the legal side, I hate to say. It actually is only 1.5 person, but our center is replete with legal types, so we bring them in on a volunteer basis to help. And we archive, we keep all the documents as well. We have an archivist. It's very important for traceability and authentication when you have audits in different projects and you're a trusted third party that you can actually show what you've done, how you did it, and what the decision was and when it was sent out. So to finish on the IPAQ, these are some of the projects, the International Human Epigenome Consortium, all kinds of federated national or international projects. I don't think we've done a national or Quebec one for quite some time. The Canadian Partnership for Tomorrow project is also one of the clients of IPAQ. So let me concentrate then on the Global Alliance, this new nascent, bewildering and often misunderstood creature. This is the mission statement of the Global Alliance. So it's to accelerate, it's to harmonize, it's to enable, it's to catalyze. It is not to create some super cloud or some super database. This does not mean that members of the Global Alliance cannot get together for computational analytical purposes in a particular project, just as ICGC, for instance, and do all their analyses in a cloud service provider. This will be enabled by the Global Alliance, but it's not, nothing belongs to the Global Alliance. Legally speaking, the Global Alliance does not exist. So it convenes, catalyzes, creates, acts as a clearinghouse, fosters innovation, and commits to responsible data sharing. So what's unique about this? Genomic people and epi people and biobank people have been doing this for quite some time. It's actually, the goal is to bring genomic and clinical data together to make the wealth, in the health sense of both of them, usable and integrated into healthcare. So we have different working groups. You can see here data security clinical. The one that I chair with Kazuta Kato from Japan and Bartha Maria from Italy is a regulatory ethics working group, and that's the one that I will be talking about. So we have within, this is sort of like an army, every working group has now task teams. We're now up to 10. The slide is not even up to date because we met last week in San Diego and I didn't have time to update it. What members wanted right away was clauses. What do I do? Is my consent sufficient? Do I have to rewrite? What do I do about legacy? So we did a few practical tools, not policy, but practical tools at the beginning for consent, thanks to Susan Hoops, wherever you are, back there, and put those up, but we are now working on policies and so on. Safe havens, what does it mean? Paul Burton is helping us with this, including another 10, 15 people. Can we, I know it's been discussed here at the Academy of Medical Sciences in the UK, can we develop platforms that are internationally recognized? So if you go to your security people or your ethics people or your access people, you say, it is an accredited safe haven. If I touch this, will it go away? Safe harbor. Now, this is a dream. It's probably a 10-year or at least a 5-year plan. How do we encourage, enable, and streamline mutual recognition between multi-site studies for ethics review? It is absolutely untenable. In Cartagena in Quebec, just Quebec, I went through 18 ethics committees for one biobank project. So you can imagine in large international studies, multiply that and you literally give up before you start. So we are working on the criterion conditions for equivalency, substantial or adequacy or equivalency between the ethics processes between different countries. Running a running tab on data protection regulation, particularly here in Europe. And if you have questions, I can answer during the question period. And finally, developing a privacy and security policy and a consent policy for data already consented. How did we do this? Well, we've been working on this idea for quite some time. This idea, however, of a human rights approach is new, and I'll get back to it. But look at all the efforts and publications that preceded the framework. The framework itself went through 8 versions, different meetings. It was translated into 5 languages just 2 weeks ago: Arabic, Japanese, Chinese, French, English. I had a volunteer for German somewhere sitting right here, and hopefully other languages as well. So what is this? And it's published in the Hugo Journal 1 week ago. So what is this framework about? Sorry, we had 18 partners in the different meetings and 100 individuals who contributed to various versions, the 8 versions of the framework. The difference about this framework is we decided after, I hate to say, a quarter of a century, that sounds worse than 25 years, of policy making, that we wanted to do something that was definitely an enabler and not just only aspirational. So we decided to take a human rights approach as opposed to strictly a bioethics approach. We concentrated on Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948, which recognizes 2 human rights. That is the right of all citizens to benefit from progress, scientific progress, and the right for all contributors thereto to be recognized therefore, i.e. scientists, infrastructure, bioinformaticians, and so on. So the right to benefit from, the right to be recognized for. This is novel in the sense that about 25 years later, those 2 rights were enshrined in an international convention, signed and ratified by 162 countries, hence actionable in internal domestic legislation. Sorry for that little law course there. But this really means that citizens now can not only all the time be, worried about hypothetical or real risks or imagined and presumed to be in need of protection, they have a human right to benefit from scientific progress, and scientists, including social scientists, have a right to be recognized for their contributions. So this is a new way of looking at the human rights in science. We took our foundational principles, or we made them up, I should say, but we did not define them. In order for them to be culturally translatable in different languages in different countries, we deliberately left them foundational in the nude, so to speak, so that every country could interpret them according to their own understanding of what they meant. These are the core elements. Each core element has 3 or 4 procedural indices or guidelines. It's a framework. It's not a SOP. We're not ISO. We're not even at best practices. We're really at the level of the interpretation at a high level of guidance. Most importantly, the biggest struggle, not biggest, but was to make sure that in the new constitution of GA4GH, as the acronym goes, that this framework was in there so that when you join, it means something. You're not just joining an association or a society, you're actually ascribing to a mission, in the mission which includes the framework as a way that the Alliance wishes to move forward. Now, you're not obliged to share data to be part of the Alliance, but if you are a member of the Alliance, it's now open to individuals for the first time. As of 2 weeks before that, it was only institutions, universities, and funders. So if you are a member of the Alliance, then the steering committee does have some discretion to remove you from membership should you not adhere to those principles. Now, these principles are being followed in a more practical, procedural way by policy templates. So this is where the contributions that Graham Laurie is in charge of our privacy and security policy task team, Susan Consent. Ethics and governance has been changed to an accountability task team that will be named next week. And this is more practical, but they'll be short and they'll be in plain English and they'll be translated as well. So we're moving on to really attempting to be international and not just presuming. And this is hard, and these translations are validated to make sure that a could does not become a must, or a may doesn't become an ought, and that kind of thing. We lawyers worry about all that kind of stuff. So these policies then, and we're open to new suggestions for policies that are needed, then will also accompany the framework on the website of the Alliance. So in conclusion, did I do it? Yeah. In conclusion, we were arguing between whether Lutherans or Calvinists are more obsessed with time. So I think I win. So in conclusion, I think what's exciting about this is that P3G, because of the time that it spent working with international biobanks around the world and sensitivity you acquire to different ways of seeing samples, data, communities, consent, and so on, in a way was a good fit to develop the first framework, along with all the REWG members, its fellow partners, and so on. And I have to say that we're really fortunate that a lot of you here contributed to it. But I think the next step of the all the other different tools, the clinical tools, the IT tools that are being built, all of them open access, all of them international, are equally exciting to the framework. Thank you.